Coaching as Benevolence, a podcast for people who are curious about using coaching for self-development. I'm Eryn with Roots and Wings Grief and Loss Coaching.
And I'm LaShawn with Michelle Sage Place Positive Intelligence Coaching. Today we are going to explore the idea of letting go. It comes up a lot in the episodes, conversations when we talk to Morgan Holiday about organizing. Letting go was part of that conversation as well, as is often part of the process of organizing our space, organizing our life. Oftentimes we do have to let things go. So today, Eryn and I are going to be talking about that concept. And one thing that I think about when I'm considering the idea of letting go is being overcommitted. For example, in my role in the nonprofit where I work, and then also just personally, there are so many things that I want to do and so many projects that I want to take on. And I find myself burned out, exhausted. And I sit back and I'm like reflecting and thinking, okay, so what things did I commit to that maybe would have been better not to commit to? And moving forward, what are some things that how should I adjust my focus? How should I reassess how I'm going to spend the rest of, this year, for example, because we're getting very close to the end of the year. And letting go is really part of that process. Letting go of beliefs about myself, ideas about how things need to be done, and also just, letting go of certain things that may not be in alignment with my values or my ultimate purpose or goals. So those are the things that I'm thinking about. How about you, Eryn?
Oh my goodness. I love that you bring up the values and goals alignment, because tonight in my women's grief support group, we are actually going to be digging into authenticity and hope. And I see how they both very much relate to letting go. So authenticity can feel so aspirational, but when you look at your day to day, I think there are moments where you can see your true alignment and where you're feeling more in the flow, where you're feeling more inspired without even really recognizing it, right? You're just being who you are and who you were meant to be. And I think that with letting go, it helps us to live more in our authenticity. And sometimes we have to, I think, have coping mechanisms that make us hang on to things, right? That keep us from letting go of things because of learned behaviors and what we've known about ourselves and how we relate to environments. And I think sometimes that's okay, right? Sometimes, even if it's not the most healthy coping mechanism for us, we are human and it's part of our lived journey to not do it right. Like nobody gets being a human right? So, but what we can do though is get our authenticity into alignment and really be able to inventory what we can make small adjustments with to lead to letting go or to hanging on. And I like this kind of philosophy of we have our authenticity and then we have our adaptive state. And our adaptive state is what also helps us get through things when maybe we cannot rely on our authenticity. But it also can be problematic because it's us not being true to ourselves then. And so when I think of letting go, I think it is a way to be true to ourselves, to our own wants and needs and where we're at in our life and how we can not only, help ourselves, but more genuinely help other people. And letting go is a concept I think that comes a lot more easily to certain people than others. I think some people who have a strong sense of adventure can move from thing to thing, have a different approach to my own approach when I think of letting go, where I like to hang on so tightly that I end up, I think I might have brought this up at one point, but when I first learned how to water ski, I hung onto the rope after I'd fallen and like body surfed forever, which was like whiplash. It was awful because I was too scared to let go. And I think that for me, that is often the case. The fear can take over, which keeps me from letting go. And this doesn't have to be something substantial, right? It can be the day to day decisions we make with intention to let go of things that just aren't in alignment. And that can be hard, especially for people in the helping professions, because we're taking other people's well being and other things into consideration too. So that's my initial just brain dump on this topic of letting go. And I'll pass it back to you, LaShawn, and maybe would be interested in learning about your approach to letting go, as well as maybe your new role in some capacity and how that might be a way of letting go.
Hmm. Well, I want to say the image that you gave me about when you were water skiing and you held onto the rope and you ended up being dragged along, and that was really not a good experience, right? But you think about the rope. One of the things that really came to my mind was the rope and the fear. And when you also mentioned, I am going to be stepping into a new role in the nonprofit where I work, the Family Learning Center. In January, I'll be the executive director. So that is a big role. And I've been in training. I've been working up to it for the past 3 years, and it's I knew it was coming, and I feel ready to step into the role. And I think one of the things would be letting go of that fear of not being good enough, that imposter syndrome that creeps in when you are elevated from one position to another. And it seems that that is as part of growing into that role is accepting the fact that you're in this role for a reason and that you have the tools that you need to be in that role. And so that would be the letting go that I'm experiencing right now, is just letting go of the idea that I'm not ready or that I am in a place where I shouldn't be, that imposter syndrome. So letting go of that. So but there is a attached to that imposter syndrome is the fear, and I'm thinking about that image that came to my mind when you were talking about that experience where you were holding on to that rope, because the rope is meant to steady you. It's meant to keep you safe, so to speak, is to keep you safe. But when you fall, it's not so safe, right? uh, so that's the thing. It's the letting go of that safety net or rope that doesn't work in the current situation. And so that's something that I was thinking about when you were talking about that. But yeah, definitely letting go of the fear, letting go of all those thoughts that come into your mind, like, being executive director, I have so much responsibility, and already things are coming to me. Even that, on Saturday night, we had our big fundraiser, and Eryn was there, and there was the announcement at the big fundraiser. And after the fundraiser, almost immediately, the current executive director, who happens to be my mother, stepped away. And I had to take care of all the things that she would normally take care of, like paying the person who facilitated the paddle raise. And I was surprised at myself. I shouldn't be surprised, but that I was able to step into that role. And that announcement, there was something about that announcement that kind of changed things for me. It made it official, that making it official. What is that? you know, it's that it's like when you get married. You could be dating the person and living with the person for years. And then you have this formal ceremony in front of your friends and loved ones where you declare vows, and you do let go of that single status or that boyfriend girlfriend status, that status that seems fluid and it's not permanent. But the minute that you exchange vows, put rings on each other's fingers, that is all of a sudden it changes. Even though nothing else changed, you're still together, you're still, living, sharing space. Then somehow by saying I do in front of, friends, family, even if it's a small, intimate ceremony or just going to the justice of the peace and signing that paper, it's the idea of the official nature of it, and also the public nature of it as well. So with that experience, I would say the concept of letting go is big. There is the transition from one role or one relationship status to another. And then there's the all those expectations that we have around that role. Going back to the executive director position that I'm going to be stepping into in January, there are so many expectations around that, as would be any expectations around a role where you're in a leadership position and there's a lot of weight associated with that. And not to mention the fact that if you have someone who came before you, you have that expectation too. Knowing, especially, our current executive director and founder, started the Family Learning Center. So I have a lot there's a lot of expectations around how is this going to be run differently with me at the helm? And so there's a lot going on there. So one of the things going back to the authenticity piece, Eryn, that you brought in, just being authentically me. One of the board members congratulated me and she said, make it your own. And I was, I really took that in and I'm like, so what does that look like? What does that look like? Make it your own, especially when the executive director and founder is still in the picture. you know, so how do I make it my own? And there's the letting go of that, the letting go of the pressures and the expectation that it has to be perfect. And there's also the pressure that you don't want to. I want to step into that role, but at the same time, I want to honor and respect the many years, 45 years experience and wisdom that goes with, the founder and current executive director, and knowing that she's still in the picture and she's still going to be very much involved. And this is part of a phase, that this is part of a process. And this is like, we're kind of in the final stages, but it's not quite there yet. We're not quite to the point where she's completely stepped back and she's like, okay, this is yours. I'm going to go do my own thing. And that in itself is going to be a process as well. So there's so much there. And I feel like I've taken up a lot of airtime. Eryn, any thoughts?
I think you can take up all the airtime. What an exciting time in your life right now, truly. Like
Yeah.
moving into this role. And I love this concept of making it your own. And I know you will, and I know you'll do a great job with it all. I do. I wholeheartedly believe that. And I think this process of letting go is just that too. Like it's a process. It's rare that we just can just like let go. There's always a lead up, right? And there's always some shifting that happens. And so I've been curious about that as part of our conversation today. What are those shifts that are creating a more gentle letting go than like getting smacked by the water like I did, like forced completely out of it all, right? And so I think part of this process is being in tune with who we are and understanding just different cues that are happening within us and outside of us as we are moving toward a goal that would require us to let something go, making a change in our life that we necessitate letting go, and so forth. And I think it's a something that cannot just only happen through individual reflection, although that's highly important, that being in tune with yourself and doing the work and the reflecting, but it's also part of a community, right? It's also other people that are involved in this process of letting go. And then when I think of, that process of letting go, it's also letting in. So as one's going through a process of letting go, they're also letting in something or multiple things or someone or a group of people that is kind of guiding to this next chapter in their lives. And I think that's a really beautiful feeling. And just when you can kind of sit with that, you're not alone in having to let go of something. You will be supported, whether that's both at the personal level or by other resources, but also maybe at the spiritual level or other things too, something to guide you on your path. And it was interesting because yesterday I gave a talk in Denver at a senior housing complex, and one of the guys there who, and let me take a step back. The people who are there are very smart. Like these are people who had pretty high level careers and then retired. And so anyway, this guy who is one of those people was like, I don't think I believe in fate. I don't believe in more of this context. And then as we went throughout the training and the conversation, he opened himself up to a different point of view. And that was so energizing for me to see his face light up with learning and him to kind of maybe have a little bit of a shifting belief around fate and around how the universe works, not to draw a specific conclusion and not to be so right in the moment, but to have that love of the mystery and the unknown and to be open to something different. And, I love that because people are often say, oh, once you get to a certain age, you can't learn something new or your beliefs won't shift. And I think that's not true. And seeing how I've interacted with various populations that are quite a bit older than myself over the past few years, and just this idea of there is something else, there's something beyond, who knows what that is, that relates to this concept of letting go and letting in. And I will say I'm a huge fan of Richard Rohr with the Contemplative Center. And he is, I think he was trained as a Jesuit priest, if I remember correctly, and really see social justice as something that is also action oriented, but also very meditative and reflective too. And I don't know why I'm bringing him in here. There was something that I read in an email because
Hmm.
I get his daily meditations, I get his daily reflections on things, and I can't remember what he said, but something he said, I'll have to see if I can find it, really resonated with me around the concept of letting go and letting in and being open to the mystery.
Hmm.
And my dear friend, and I write about this in my book too, Marika, who talks about how we're open to the mystery when something may be very tragic or something like that. And then I want to go grab one other thing from your event last night or Saturday night.
Yeah,
Let me grab it really fast.
sure.
I was the lucky winner of these wall hangings that have different sayings. I don't know if these look familiar to you, LaShawn. It was a set of three
Yeah.
in a mystery bag. But this
Oh,
says, so I want to share this with you too as you let go
yeah.
and let as you, in your new role. But it says, promise me you will always remember you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. We probably, most of us have maybe heard that growing up in the K-12 system or something.
Hmm.
But as you let go, I think this is a good kind of nugget to hang on to.
Hmm.
And as you face hardship and challenge, as you let new things in, remembering that, you're braver and stronger and smarter than you think. So I love that. And then I must share because I'm on this thing. I got this one too, and I thought it was really neat.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, I know. I lucked out on the mystery bags at your event. So it
Yeah.
says, walk with the dreamers, the believers, the courageous, the cheerful, the planners, the doers, the successful people with their heads in the clouds and their feet on the ground. Let their spirit ignite a fire within you to leave this world better than when you found it. Love
Wow,
this
that's
too.
beautiful.
Yeah. And, letting this fire be ignited is a way of letting go. And I like that concept too. So I thought those fit. So especially thought I'd bring them in. I'm so glad I won them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wow, it's almost like it was fated. It's such, yeah, it's aligned with our conversation in so many ways. That's so cool. Yeah, that's the beauty of the mystery bags that we have at the event. There, you just don't know what you're going to get, but almost all the items have been selected with care and with thought. And so any item that you get is going to be something that's of value and it's going to add value to your life. So I'm really glad that those items did that. That's great. Wow. So I'll definitely take those in. I love what you said about letting in because I think that's the flip side of letting go, right? So when we let go, we let in. If we're holding on to that rope and we're getting slapped around, that we don't really have that chance to open our hands, open up and allow that peace or that calm that will come with letting go of the rope, even though we think this is keeping me safe. This is keeping me safe. No, it's not. It's actually, causing you to get tossed around. So let it go, and then it won't be so choppy, and you can kind of float there in the water. And that was very much that image, Eryn, is just sticking with me. But I love
It was
that.
rough.
Yeah, I bet. Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. But the letting in is just such an important part of it, because that's one of the things that helps me when I'm going through that process and that journey of letting go. Because there's that rigidity of, this is work, this is what I'm familiar with, this is comfortable, and that other thing, the alternative, is not familiar, it is a bit new. And like the quote that you shared before, there is that imposter syndrome of thinking that maybe this time I won't be able to live up to this, or I won't have what it takes, so to speak. And so letting in the possibility of what you could grow into, what I could grow into, what I could evolve into. And if I think about my journey, if I think about the way it was when I started, and I remember talking to my mom when I was saying, I really want to be more involved with the Family Learning Center. I love the mission. I can't think of anything more fulfilling to do with my time and, with my energy. I knew that in stepping into that role was going to stretch and I was going to grow, and I did not know who I would be. I'm still there. I'm still knowing that this next phase of the process, I'm going to stretch and grow. And there's so many things that I'm learning, and so many unknown unknowns that are becoming known unknowns, and that I'm slowly learning about. And each setback, each learning opportunity that I have encountered has made me stronger and braver, and more equipped, better equipped for the next challenge. It's that, that saying that often the things that we go through are like a precursor for that next challenge, that next opportunity. So that, being open to that. And then what you said before, Eryn, about not being alone in the process is so true. There's going to be people along the way who are going to be there, who have been there before, who can lend some insight into their journey. It may not be your journey, because everyone's journey is unique and different, and everybody is going to show up. If they show up authentically, they're going to show up differently in similar situations. However, it gives comfort. It brings comfort to be around people. Going back to the second quote that you shared, Eryn, being around those dreamers, those people with their head in the clouds and their feet on the ground, those visionaries, those people who are doing amazing things in the community. They're reminders and they are sources of inspiration for me. This can be done. This has been done. And this can be done in my way. And I can share my own unique perspective, my own unique way of looking at things. And yes, it's going to be messy. And yes, I'm going to mess up. And yes, I'm going to say the wrong thing, or offend someone, or those things are going to happen, and each time I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow. And that's something to let in, letting in those experiences, letting in the chance to grow, letting in the expansion that comes with stepping out of your comfort zone and trying something new, something different, something more challenging, with more responsibility. Why not surprise yourself? Those are the things that we're letting in, those exciting opportunities to wow ourselves, and to find out through experience that we are stronger than we think, braver than we think, smarter than we think, more capable. Because often we do play down our accomplishments when we're in the new, and when we're in different environments. And just knowing that when you go into that with a growth mindset, letting in those possibilities, those exciting opportunities, those are the things that, when we enter into a situation with that growth mindset that Carol Dweck wrote about, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, and just how important it is to remember that we're always growing, that we're dynamic, that, neuroplasticity is a thing. Like you said, when you were talking about addressing mature adults and holding in the idea that we are growing, no matter how old we are, no matter what our age, we're dynamic. We are growing and learning and expanding and changing. And it's really just a point where when you're letting in that happens. I think that's the invitation to grow. The growth is there, the capability is there. Your nature as a human being, our nature as a human being is to grow, is to learn, is to expand. And it is the letting go that lets in that growth and expansion. What are your thoughts, Eryn?
Yes, with that letting go, I get images of like things as well because I mean, if you see my office is kind of messy, like there's stuff around me because I'm kind of a messy person in that way. Like I don't let go of some of the things. I hang on to them when I probably should say they've had their lifespan in my home. I can Marie Kondo it, get it out, of my space and be really grateful that I had it for when I had it.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's not how I relate to a lot of the things that are like just sitting here in my office, right? I just let them pile up and pile up. And I think that's a good metaphor for when there are certain things that have been bothering us and we let them just keep piling up instead of addressing them, that can lead to health issues and a lot of resentment potentially. And I think that's really hard because we have not gotten conflict conversations really, or even just conflict just as a whole very well in our culture, or else things would look differently, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think it really comes down to how we learn how to navigate conflict and engage it, not avoid it, and also how we can engage it with care and authenticity. And I think that's the gold standard, right? Like if we can get to that space of being able to do that, then we probably feel pretty aligned. But there's so many things, especially around the holidays, that keep that from happening. We're seeing family consistently, maybe some old wounds continue to be the exact same as they always were. And then at that point, at what point, what are you really able to let go of? What are you able to really be open to? And so, with the holidays coming, I think that we can say, you can be open to a surprise or something being a little bit different and just be open to that. Just not have an expectation in that way. And then as far as like the letting go piece of those death by paper cut wounds, right, that are constantly coming at somebody or you or whomever, I think that there is a way to reorient to that as well. And yes, it might be having hard conversations, but maybe there's something else there that helps you let go of the hurt or the heartache. And I know forgiveness is one concept of that in some ways, but I think that there's other things too that can be done in the moment. So you're at a holiday event, the same person says the same thing and it's not kind. And then you are left with the decision. And maybe it's not the time to engage and the time to let go of whatever you were holding on to in that relationship, walk away, go take that walk, go do something a little bit differently. So I think just even in those day-to-day moments, I'm trying to highlight here. I know those show up a lot during the holidays specifically. And so how can people take away approaches or ways to do something a little bit different? It's not a big adjustment. It just gives them a little more hope in the moment. It gives them a little bit more something to let in the moment. And I really hope that people have that capacity as they go into these next couple of months, that they can at least, if it's not there, at least feel supported that they can have it. And even that can be a good first step. So again, just taking it kind of down to the day to day, letting things in, letting things go, and how that could play out in the coming weeks for our listeners during the holidays. And I know they're challenging, right? I don't know what it's like. I'll speak for myself. Challenging. The holidays are a little bit challenging, and that's okay. Like naming that and having an expectation around it that doesn't fit, like that's not helpful to have a false expectation either. So being open to that things may not be perfect and what can you be open to instead. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that you bring up the idea of considering that it is a possibility or being open to. I like that because it's a gentle way of looking at letting go and letting in. Where if you it goes back to the story you told about the gentleman who was resistant to the idea of fate, but then through the process of the workshop was open to maybe considering the idea of fate and had a change of heart or a change in perspective, which I think is the beginning of that would be being open to it. Like stating, of course, that you are skeptical of or not sure about. I think just stating that, saying, I'm not so sure about this. I'm not, I'm kind of skeptical of this idea. But it also, I think, in voicing that opens a kind of possibility to be maybe challenged or to see something different or maybe change your perspective a little. So I think that being open is part of the letting in and letting go as well. That part of it, definitely. And then going into the holidays can be a challenging time. And it's not just, being around family or old wounds that are coming up or wounds that are maybe that you forgot about they're coming back, they're a little bit tender, but it's also the expectations of holidays. If you think about dinners and giving gifts and writing those cards, that to me personally, like I think like around just before Halloween and just after Halloween, I start thinking about, okay, so who do I need to get gifts for and what should I get them and will they like them and will that be the best gift for them and do I have it in my budget? And it's just like all this stuff that comes up around the holidays, all these expectations for how things should be, like how the house should be and how, we should decorate and how we should be organized and all of these things that come up in my mind when the holidays come around and I think about what I did the last year and what I said I would not do this year that I'm doing again, those type of things. And
Yes.
there's that other thing that I think is really important is giving ourselves grace, which comes up a lot in our episodes, which is the the importance of in this phase in the process of letting go, in the process of letting in and being open to and receptive of changes and different perspectives is just giving ourselves grace and being okay with being messy and being okay with not being completely organized and being okay with not having the your space the way you want it before the holidays begin because they've already begun. It's like around Halloween, it's like that's holiday season and it continues all
It
the way
really
through to the
is.
new year. So there's so many expectations and pressure out there for us that we can choose to let go of, or we can choose to let in a little bit of it just to kind of, keep us on task or whatever. But I think it's important to give ourselves grace. I think that's a really important thing in this process is just to be kind to ourselves and allow ourselves to be human because humanity is messy. It is messy.
Yes. Yes. And acknowledging that for ourselves and for others. I love
Mhm.
that. Just like it's always shifting, it's always messy. So I guess when you can go back to what can you root into to move with that, to let things in and let go of other things. It goes back to the first thing you said in the episode. You can root into your values
Mhm.
or, really your authenticity or who you are, those types of things. Traditions potentially can be something or something related to people's faith, or, there's so many different ways to approach what can help people feel grounded. And in that saying, keeping your feet on the ground and your head in the clouds, right? Like that's a tall order to be able to do
Mhm.
that, right?
You have to be a
Uh,
tall person.
yeah, exactly, exactly. so, um, so I think yes, aspiring for that and being okay with where it lands too, and
Mhm.
trusting that as part of this process of letting go, not only will you have growth, but it will lead you into a space that helps you feel more aligned to start the next chapter, helps you believe in yourself more potentially, and be open to what's to come. So, yeah, that's where I guess I land with letting it go.
Yeah, and it's such a good segue into the coaching nuggets of wisdom. Like the way that you kind of wrapped that up into a beautiful bow. I love that. um, my coaching nugget of wisdom would be I'm going to go back to that piece that I ended with, which was the idea of grace. And I would ask our listeners, when you are in that process of letting go, where can you give yourself grace?
That's so helpful. I like that. And as you're letting go and letting in, you know, be open to what might be supportive to you, whether that's people or throughout the process.
Thanks for
And
joining
it's
us
okay
for
to lean
Coaching
into that
as
support
Benevolence.
too.
I'm LaShawn with Mayshell's Sage Place, Positive Intelligence Coaching.
And I'm Eryn with Roots and Wings, Grief and Loss Coaching.
Have a benevolent day.